Well, good evening, everyone. I suppose we should get started. Before we actually get into the presentation, I'd like to ask and make sure that everyone can hear me. If you can hear me, if you could either note within the question or in the chat box that you can hear me, that would be great. It looks like, let's see. I see that the microphone looks like it's working, it's picking up, and mute is off. Question mark. I see a lot of question marks in the attendees section, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Okay. Okay, loud and clear. Awesome. All right, let's proceed then. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Argosy University webinar on research and literature review process. My name is Dr. Jesse Laris, and I have been working an instructor with Argosy University Online and the Argosy University Twin Cities campus since 2008. I've also worked in the Argosy University Twin Cities Library since 2001. I received my doctorate degree from Argosy University, and so literature review is something that I had to do with a number of classes that I was in. And so tonight what we're going to do is just talk about some of the basics of literature review and research. So our objectives for this evening, first we're going to find out what is an effective literature review. We're going to talk about the 5 steps of the literature review process, and then we'll talk about some of the tools you can use to organize your search. Before we get started, though, we've kind of already used this, where you can ask questions of me or respond to me by using the chat function. We're actually recording this session this evening to make it available to other students in the future. So if we could wait until the end, I'll leave about 10 minutes at the end of the presentation to ask any specific questions you might have. I'm also going to provide my personal information as far as getting in contact with me, so that you'll be able to either email me or give me a phone call if you have questions in the future. All right, so what is a literature review? Well, a literature review basically is a comprehensive and up-to-date overview of the principal research about a topic being studied. In your papers or in your dissertation, if you're doing a dissertation, it's something which is going to help build your research, essentially. It's going to help you give the reader that background knowledge to understand what is the research said in the pointed to or said in the past about that particular topic. It also helps you to form the intellectual framework for your particular study. And so your intellectual framework essentially is kind of the basis for the study. What are the main ideas, or what is the main perspective or the lens that you're looking at that particular study? What's the lens you're looking at what you're studying through? It does not need to be exhaustive, but what you do need to do is have the most relevant books, articles, reports, etc. To that particular topic. This is where, if you're doing a dissertation, your chairs and your committee members will come in handy to help you. Hopefully they've got a background in that topic, so they'll be able to point you in the direction of some of the seminal works within that particular area. And so that's where that last bullet point is talking about there as well. You want the most pertinent studies, the most important information that has been published in the past about that particular topic to also show up in your study as well, to help guide your study. So an effective literature review analyzes and synthesizes material. So what you'll do is you'll find a number of different articles and you'll compare and contrast that research. Do they corroborate one another? Do they help to expand your research? Are you doing something that's totally different against the grain of what's already been done? In some cases, what you'll find are research articles don't agree, and that's great. That's fine, because you'll get different perspectives, and it's up to you to kind of figure out why are they different, what are the main components that make them different. When you're reading through those research articles, you'll be looking for patterns and trends. A lot of times those patterns and trends will become the subject headings within your research, and that's one of the cool things about APA is it allows you to kind of compartmentalize that information. So that's another piece that you're looking for. And then how does your research, this is how you can kind of bring forth your own methodology or your own insight into what you're researching by seeing how it relates to those previous studies. You also want to look at the methodology of other studies that you've found, or other research data that you've found. It says criticize there, but criticizing doesn't mean to just point out the faults. It means to also look at it from a critical angle to see what worked in those methodologies and what didn't work. Where are the holes, so on and so forth. And again, you want to make sure that you highlight the seminal works out there that help to guide your research. In some cases, you might find where in your mind someone hasn't asked the right questions, and maybe that's the emphasis or the impetus for your particular study, that you're trying to determine, there's this other piece that someone else has never thought of before, and that's where you're coming in, because you want to research that particular gap that's out there, or that omission that someone else has not even thought of. So it's just looking at what are those questions that are left unanswered. And then you want to show how your study relates to the larger study, the field of knowledge that's out there, the body of knowledge that's out there. Where is it that you will fit in? And then in the end, you'll always want to summarize your literature review by synthesizing all of that information. So before you get started in doing your literature review, some of the things that you'll need to consider. First, you do have to have a topic, right? And in essence, what you're looking for is, what is your research question? If you go out and you're just searching in the databases, probably you might do this initially to try to come up with a possible topic. But if you go out and your topic is too broad and you just want to search on, for instance, if you were just interested in leadership and you want to go out and do a dissertation on leadership or a paper on leadership, that's not specific enough for you to find pertinent information. So you might find that you're searching all over the board. You wouldn't have any real real strategic research that you could look at a particular topic. Finding out what some of the limitations are that you want to add to your study, that's going to help you to limit what you'll be searching for in the different databases. So is it a specific time? Are you looking at a specific gender or age or location? Maybe within a specific field. So for instance, if you were in the business community, you might look at something within the marketing field, or a particular type of investment, maybe angel investors, things of this nature. With the scope of your literature review, you want to make sure that you know exactly what you cover in your review, that how comprehensive it will be. In some cases, you might find, and we talked about time, you might say that you're going to do a 5 to 10 year study, so you're only going to go back 5 to 10 years, or you only will want to look over a certain period. Say, for instance, you were researching Enron or Sarbanes-Oxley, and you wanted to see what kind of literature was coming out during that time. You might only search within that time period. You'll also want to know what methodological approaches, what theories are out there. If you're talking about leadership, there are a bevy of different leadership models. So there's different theories as to the most effective leadership model that's out there. And then also what kind of research or methodology that has been done. Is it mostly qualitative, quantitative research? And then you can also broaden your search to seek literature in related disciplines, depending on how much information you find. And I thought for this particular evening's presentation that we might have a good example, because we've talked about, you have to have a good research question, but what is a way to come up with a research question? Because what will happen is once you've got that research topic, or even if you're in a class and you are given a particular assignment, you can typically pick out keywords from that particular question, or that particular question, or your particular research that will help you in developing a very good literature review strategy or research strategy. So for this evening, let's all pretend we're women. I don't know, I didn't see how many people in the class were women, but let's just say that we're all women and we're all in the military, right? So say maybe I'm a veteran, maybe I'm still in the military, and I'm an enlisted soldier, and I'm really interested in leadership because I'm not sure if I want to become a commissioned officer, or not. And maybe this is something that I want to do a study on. And so I'm going to look at leadership. And if you're doing a qualitative study, this is kind of a means of triangulation. When you start your dissertation, this is advice that was given to me by someone. Pick 3 things that you're really interested in, and use those to develop a research question, because that's something that you're passionate about. So in this case, I was just trying to come up. I didn't want to give my dissertation topic, which was how library leaders use creativity in their decision-making process. Right, so I had, for my dissertation, it was basically decision-making, leadership, and creativity. Those were kind of the lens that I looked at my literature review through. And so in this case, I was thinking to myself, from a woman's perspective in the military who's there to lead, what would be something that she would, what would be some of the things that she might be interested in, or what would her specific leadership style be? And I was looking through a book called Primal Leadership by Daniel Goleman, and there are a couple other authors, but Daniel Goleman, if you're not familiar with him, he's the person that came up with emotional intelligence. And so I thought, maybe, what if I had a question such as, how do female officers use emotional intelligence to motivate and lead troops? All right, so here we've got a number of different terms. We've got female officers, so you've got women or female. You've got officers, which, this could be any branch of service. You could do Air Force, Marines, you could do all armed services, so on and so forth. You've got emotional intelligence, which can be used in a leadership style, but it's not normally considered leadership. So maybe that would be something that I would want to change with my triangulation on the top there. Motivation's another thing there too. Okay, motivation and leading, those are leadership as well. So these are terms that we could use to go into the databases and do searches. And that's what I'm going to do in a little while when we start talking about the different databases that you can use and how to use them. As we'll get in there and I'll show you exactly how we can add those into the databases to hopefully get some good results. All right, so let's begin. There are 5 steps in the literature review process, and we start from the bottom and we move towards the top. So you identify those key terms, right? We just talked a little bit about that. We're going to use as an example this evening, we're going to do women in the military essentially and how they lead. So that's going to be our basis. And then we're going to locate the literature, so then we have to figure out which of the databases we're going to go into. And hopefully some of you are familiar with the databases. If not, I'll give you just a very brief tour as to where you can find some really good information. And then it's critically evaluating and selecting the appropriate literature to go into your literature review. Once you've done that, you'll want to organize your literature, and this is more than just the references section in the APA, in the APA or of an APA paper. This is within the actual literature review itself. How can you tell the story of what you're researching, right? So in this case, I might start out with a section on the history of women in the military. maybe history of famous military leaders who were women, things of that nature, and then move into different leadership models and see how they're used in the military. Maybe there's some research out there on the most effective models within the military. I don't know if the military has a specific, leadership style. Is it transformative? Is it more authoritative? So on and so forth. So once we've figured out how we want to put those into the perspective of our literature review and how they make the most sense, then we start to write, of course. All right, and it does say at the bottom that this is not always a linear process. So the first step is identifying those keywords and descriptors, all right? And so we talked about, for us, those main ones would include women, military, and leadership, but there are also terms that are related, and they might be things like you might use female with women, you might use one of the specific branches, we talked about that earlier, leadership, management, those are two terms that some people say are quite different, but others would say that they're very similar, just depending on what your, which perspective you have. I think there was an article, and I forget who wrote it, if it was Warren Bennis? I can't remember the guy's name, but had written an article about the difference between management and leadership. And anyway, if you're not finding other terms and you're becoming frustrated by the terms that you're using in the databases, many of the databases will include a thesaurus. So you can go in, click, and you'll see that at the bottom of the screen there. You can go in, click on the thesaurus, type in your search term, and it should give you related terms as well that might be used more often in that database. Furthermore, once we get into some of the articles, the research articles, they'll have subject terms within them that help with the research process. So you might go in and I might do a search for women in the military, and I might find an article, and one of the terms that might be, or one of the subjects that's listed there might be transformative leadership. I'm not sure. I haven't done the search yet. But that's just one way of getting, and here is an example of you'll have to excuse me, I'm new to this presentation. I'm actually filling in for somebody, so I'm not 100% familiar with all the slides, but you'll see here where we have different subjects within a particular article, the article, and other keywords that will show up there as well. All right, so locating literature, where do you start? All right, so there's specific, subject-specific databases, and then there are multidisciplinary databases. And here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pull in the library's homepage and just show you a couple of things. First of all, if you're ever in the library and you have questions and you're running into problems, always feel free to go to the chat online box. All right, if you click on that, a librarian on the other end, you should be able to ask them questions. I'm Jess. Has anyone tried this? Twin Cities. See. Let's just see if anybody's home. Boom. Start the chat. Now we're going to really put them to the test, guys, right? Hopefully somebody will be there. Here we go. So usually if it's green, it means that somebody's there. Looks like Marie Miller has joined the chat. All right, we'll let her off the hook. But anyway, I'll contact her later and let her know what I did. So, okay, so you've got help there. You've got find articles where you can click on the find articles. This is kind of what we talked about. There are subject area specific, and then there are multidisciplinary databases. The first two here, ProQuest Central and All EBSCO, those are the ones that are specific. Or I mean, not specific, but those are ones that are multi-faceted, multidiscipline databases where you can go in and you can search a myriad of different databases. I'd always suggest if you are within a particular field, looking within a particular field, you might use one of the specific databases. So for instance, if I was in the business program, I might use one of the ABI Inform databases because these are all related to business. If I was in the education program, I'd either use the education databases here or ERIC databases. ERIC is a clearinghouse for educational resources. And I just want to check my chat here, make sure I'm leaving anybody hanging. And so on and so forth. So there's all kinds of databases in many different disciplines here. Let's go back into the main. Whoops. Go to the main again. You also can look for the books. We've got the EBSCO ebooks in the eBrary. If you're in the psychology programs, you can look up for psych books. If you are associated with a specific campus, you can see if you have a book on a particular topic at your campus by clicking on the Search Argosy University Libraries. Literati by Credo. I'm going to show you Literati by Credo and the digital dissertations databases in a moment here. That's finding books. We have videos. If you come across a journal article and you can't find it in you found it in in one of the databases, but it wasn't full text, you could go to the A to Z of online journal titles. If you click on that, what you're doing is actually you'll search for a journal title, but not a journal article. I hope that makes sense. So if I type in the Journal of Education, which I don't know if that's actually a journal or not, I just figured I would try that. Here, because I did begins with, so it's looking for things that begin with journal. Journal of Education and Health Promotion, Journal of Education here. It'll show you which databases we have access to. So for instance, if you had a journal article in front of you and you went to the references section, and in that references section, you found a reference for an article you thought would be really good, or it mentioned it in the paper and you want to locate that article, you can take that article journal title, come to the A to Z Online Journal Titles list, type it in here, and it'll show you if we have it in any of our databases. If we don't have it, that's something that we can interlibrary loan, or one of your libraries could interlibrary loan for you. All right, I hope I'm still coming through loud and clear. Getting some weird red lines on my thing here, but all right, we'll just keep plugging on. Okay, so that's the A to Z journal titles list, or the A to Z of online journals. Dissertations. If I was a doctoral student and I was doing this, I was doing a dissertation again, I would go into the Explore Dissertations section here, because if you're looking for, and you can look at ones that have been done at other Argosy campuses, or you can look at the digital dissertations and theses. This is pretty huge. This is a huge database that you can search. It used to be the UMI dissertations, and I think it was bought out by ProQuest, and so let's just try this real quick. The reason I like this one is because it'll show you how other people have studied this as far as doctoral students are concerned. Also, when you're talking about a very thorough literature review, this is one of the places that you'll find that. So a lot of times, these students that have done their dissertations, they've gone out, they've done lots of research, they've compiled lots of data, they've done a study, so you could tell whether or not your study is something that's already been done, and then you can change it a bit. Let's see. So in this case, let's do leadership, women. I'll do Anne, and I'm going to use female here, or female, right? So the or is what we call, it's a Boolean operator that expands, so it's expands my search. And is a limiter, because it'll limit my search between these two terms, but or will expand because it allows me to look for both of those terms. All right, so leadership, military, and I'll do armed services, okay? And I can spell. Services. I need more sleep. Armed services, okay? And so the reason I put that in quotation marks is because the database will now look for that term as a two-word term, right? So if I didn't put in quotation marks, in some cases, the databases will look for the word armed and will look for the word services, okay? So, but this should make it look for both of those simultaneously. So I'll do my search, see what we get. So you're seeing that we get 231 results, okay? And I'm getting things like gender and leadership, female ROTC cadets, perception of gender and military leadership. All right, so looking through here, we've got servant leadership. We talked about that we wanted to do emotional intelligence. I'm gonna see what happens if I do and let's try this, see what happens. Whoop. There we go. All right, you can see that someone actually has done a survey or done some kind of some type of dissertation or research, developing tomorrow's leaders, the relationship between servant transformational. Okay, so they've looked at a lot of them. They do have the word male and female there. So if I wouldn't have used the word female in my search, I might not have gotten this result. I don't know what it means to my research, but it might be something that would be helpful for me. In this case, we are searching for only dissertations, so we really don't have to do this doctoral dissertations only. And typically, not always, but typically your searches will come back with full text. All right, and this is pretty huge, actually 7 megabytes. Okay, so that was a quick how to search, how we used our search terms within the databases, kind of an example there. We'll go back to the home, and I want to point out 2 more things. We'll talk about RefWorks in a little bit, but I'm going to talk about Literati by Credo, because that's another database that you can look into. The Literati by Credo is essentially it's a reference database. All right, so by that I mean that a lot of the information you find here will be encyclopedias, handbooks, it will be dictionaries and things of that nature. So when you do a search, let's see, we'll try it again. And I'm not sure how this is going to work here, but we'll see what we get. Okay, so this is I've got 669 results, and this is leadership in Encyclopedia of Women and Gender. There might be other things here that are useful. I did not use the advanced search, I just typed it in, so the advanced search would probably be the way to go here. But what I really wanted to show you is this, and the reason that you might come in here is that, or might use this database, is that it'll give you background definitions. Like if you're working on your dissertation, you're going to find that one of the sections that you have to fill in or work on are the definitions. And so this might be a good place to do some research and get definitions and actually get not just, you'll get definitions that are actually, what's the word, scholarly essentially in many cases. The other piece too, if you look off to the left-hand side, you can link into other databases as well. So if I click here, it'll pop me into the Academic Search Complete database and do those searches within that database, or searches for this term within those databases. Another piece too, just kind of hopefully not to bounce around too much, but if you click on military, the link, and you scroll down to the bottom of the section, I'm just showing you this as an example, you'll find that it does have an APA style citation listed there. So this is something that you could possibly, copy and paste it into your data, into your paper. You'll want to, add the hanging indents and things of that nature. Make sure that the font is correct when you do that, but at least you've got your reference already created there in APA style for you. So that's Literati by Credo. Let's see, of course there's always so many questions, but we don't always have so many things we could cover, I should say. Okay, so we talked about specific databases. We've talked about the multidisciplinary databases. We're going to talk about, let's see. So we talked about the dissertations. We talked about the library catalog. Excuse me. So when conducting your research, and locating your literature, you don't want to always restrict to full text. You might start out with restricting your results to full text, but in some cases, we might not have in the databases access to full text of those particular articles. So if you find the citation, that might be something where you can interlibrary loan that information and we would be able to develop or to deliver it to you. Hopefully everybody here is familiar with ILLiad. If not, please contact me or one of the other librarians at your campus and ask them to give you more information on ILLiad. ILLiad is something where we can ask another library for a journal article or other resources to help you with your research. Furthermore, as you can see off to the side there, it says peer-reviewed. Everyone, peer-reviewed is a process by which articles essentially gain credibility. When an article is submitted for publication, if the journal is a peer-reviewed journal, individuals within the editing process will make sure that the APA is up to standard, that the methodology is appropriate, so on and so forth, that it actually jives with what the field has to say about that particular topic. One other thing you can do, and we didn't really talk about this, but let me go back and bring this back. And I'm skipping over a couple of things just because we are limited to time here. But you can, at the very end, do just a basic library search. So I'm just going to type this in. I'm not even going to use the AND functions. So I'll do women, military, leadership. All right, and this will search most, if not all, of our databases to see what kind of results, or to look at the different types of results that we have in them. As you can see, there's over 440,000 results for those three terms there: women and military leadership, so on, in Pharaonic Egypt, so on and so forth. There's all kinds of results here that we have to look through. And the reason that we don't do that as our first search is because there's so much to look through that this is kind of a last gasp. I'm going to clean up and kind of look at all my options, or see, just to make sure that there's pieces out there that I missed, way of looking at the different at the information. So you should, hopefully, by using the specific databases that are related to your particular field, be able to find relevant, important information for your study. So I would always suggest going to those specific databases first. Now, lastly, we'll talk about Google Scholar. Google Scholar is interesting. You can start by looking at Google Scholar. You can also, wrap up your research by looking at Google Scholar. Google is not the enemy of libraries, as some might think, or they're killing libraries because everybody can Google everything now. Google is a service, and Google will charge for articles if you go there. But the one thing that Google does that our databases don't do so well is it allows you to be a messy researcher. That is to say that you can go into Google and type about just about anything, and it'll give you a relevant result. And so in some cases, it might be a good place to start with your research, because if you don't know exactly what you're trying to search for, you might go in there, do a messy search, and then go, well, hey, there's a great research question that I have, or, oh, wait, I never thought about those terms in conjunction with this particular research. So I'm not saying don't use Google Scholar. I'm just saying that if you go to use Google Scholar, don't expect that they're going to be able to give you, or that they're going to give you willingly, all the articles that you might find in the library databases. So you might go to Google Scholar, you might find some articles, you might find partial articles where you're missing some of the pages, and you might use those, I don't know. But you can go there, do a messy search, bring those search terms back into the database, or come back in with an article and say, oh, hey, I want to know if this particular article is in our databases. So you could do a library search for it, or you could go into the A to Z of online journal titles and look for it via the by the journal title, not the journal article title. Also, we talked about this as well, just a little bit briefly, looking at the references section or the bibliography section, um, and you'll be able to find information there possibly that will lead you to other articles that will help you. For instance, you might find an article and you might go to the references section and you might find an author that's talking about a topic, and you might not have known that that author was an expert in that field. So you might take that author's name, like for instance, digital natives, right? Someone might have written an article about digital immigrants and digital natives, and the guy's name is Smith. You go to that references section, you find a guy by the name of Prensky, and you look up Prensky in in our databases, and you'll find that Prensky's written like 10 to 20 articles over the past 15 years on that particular topic of the digital immigrant or digital native. So that's just another way to get at some of those seminal authors, those experts within the field. You can also look at review articles. Typically, when you go into, and this is a little tidbit because I see this, I work with Interlibrary Loan. If you go into the databases and you find an article and the journal title is called Choice, Choice is what librarians use to purchase books for their libraries. Choice is just a months, every month they have like, I don't know, 2,000 reviews that get published on various books that just came out by various experts within the field. So you're going to get, if you do a search for Choice, or if you look within, you find an article that's in a journal called Choice, that's what you're going to get, is just a review. So if you looked at that and maybe you needed to find out whether or not it was a book or whatever, it's a book. That's something that you could ask for. I know some libraries in the system, not all of them will interlibrary loan books for you, but I would talk to your local librarian about that. Another thing to do if you want to know if it's a book that's worth getting, you could go to Amazon.com and look for that title and then determine whether or not it's something that you wanted to try to either interlibrary loan or purchase for yourself. Okay, literature reviews may already exist on some aspects of your topic, and that's where there are some journal articles that are published that just are specifically, I think they call them position papers on a topic. So someone might have gone through and looked at and done an extensive literature review, and that's all they did was they published all the literature on a topic. They didn't actually do any research. They just looked at what was out there within the field. All right, so locating literature, prioritize your search. Like I said, look for the peer-reviewed and look for the full text first of all in your scholarly articles, but then look for those books deselect those, the peer-reviewed and full text, and see what else comes up. There might be some articles that we don't have access to that we could get through interlibrary loan. Then maybe you want to move on to books. It all depends, actually, I would say. In some cases, you might start with books, i.e. if you don't have a background in any of the topics that you're searching, you might find that, for instance, what's a good instance of that? Let's see. So for leadership, say for instance, I did a paper on leadership, or a dissertation on leadership, I might need to go out and read Coos and Posner's The Leadership Challenge, or I might need to go out and get Servant Leadership by Greenleaf, or any other number of books, depending on which flavor of leadership I was looking for. You also have access to conference papers where people have presented papers at conferences, and of course we talked about dissertations. Like I said, if you're looking for literature reviews and you want to know how to do a good one, or you want to know how they're kind of set up, go into the dissertations and they will show you some examples of how you could form your literature review. Now you have to make it your literature review. You can't copy and paste all of their information, because if you do that, then you're plagiarizing. So even if you use somebody else's methodology, you're going to want to email them or get in contact with them and tell them, or ask them, is it okay if I do a derivative of your search, or not search, excuse me, of your particular study? I'm very interested in this. And a lot of times people will be honored that someone actually read their dissertation. So let's see, you can rely on the most current research. That all depends also on, you'll have classical works out there that you'll want to include, but for the most part, you want to get the latest 5 to 10 years. So you can limit your searches to the last 5 to 10 years as well. And then also that primary research. I've seen dissertations, I'm actually working on some dissertation committees where individuals are using secondary sources for studies that have been published by the government and things of this nature, which if I was to do my dissertation, I would do everything in my power to make sure I got a hold of that primary source. So I wasn't using someone else's interpretation of data, I was using my own interpretation of that particular data. All right, and that's the thing about Literati by Credo. Literati by Credo is typically a secondary source type of resource, encyclopedias, dictionaries, so on and so forth. Now this talks about, sorry about that, I got ahead of myself, primary sources. So you're looking for the results of an experiment, research studies, statistical data. I saw statistical data and I wanted to show everyone a database that they might not be familiar with called Statistical Abstracts of the United States. So if you are looking for statistical information on, health related, on job related, on things, anything that the U.S. Census might have, like for instance, if you're a psychology student and you were looking for, how many cases of schizophrenia were reported in 2014 or whatever the last year we did the census was. It must not have been 2014. But anyway, you could go in there and you would find that data. So you could just source Statistical Abstracts of the U.S. and you would have, some information in your data, in your paper that that had some statistical weight to it. All right, so just want to show you that database. Let's see. If it's an article, and if you've been through the W7000 course, or if you're going through it now, you're going to learn a lot about methodology, results, and discussion. These are parts of a doctoral paper or theses, whatever, but they also show up a number of times, or they also show up in research articles as well as different sections. And again, that's one of the great things. People complain about APA, but I love APA because it allows me to sectionalize my papers, my reports, things of that nature. So so it just doesn't have to be one long paper. It can be a number of shorter papers. Excuse me. All right, so now we're evaluating our literature review. And one of the ways to do that, whether it's to tell if it's a primary source or not, is to look at the abstract. The cool thing about the abstract, I'm going to show you this here, bring this back. If you are in the ProQuest Central database, it's going to pop in here, hopefully rather quickly, and you type in women in leadership, you can put your cursor over the top of the word preview here, and it will show you the abstract, so you don't have to actually go into the article to read it. All I do is put my cursor over the preview here, and it'll let me know whether or not, what kind of a study this was. So this is actually just a list of the 100 best companies of leadership. It's not really a study. If you look here, it looks like it was some kind of a news broadcast. If you go into ProQuest Central, all the different types of resources that are in here have different symbols, so we might just go to scholarly journals. That way we know that, typically they'll be peer reviewed, so on and so forth. We didn't do full text or peer reviewed here. But again, look at the abstract, and it should give you, this one is a review. This must be a book here, right? Remember we talked about that, nonfiction, so yep, it looks like a book to me. Let's go back here. So in this case, in this example, we see that it's highlighted over here. The purpose of this article is to review. So this is just a review article. And like I said, a kind of like a position paper on the topic. In this one here, we see that it's got a methods section, it's got a results section, it's got a conclusion. It looks like classified, study where 193 infants. And so 193 infants is called a what? A sample. Okay, so infants and their mothers. All right, so those are some of the earmarks of what a research article would be. So critically evaluating your literature, you want to start from new material to old. Go with the general stuff to the very specific. So once we've done, our search on leadership and women in the military, we might go add those other terms like transformational leadership, and then do what's the other one? I can't remember now. Anyway, but emotional intelligence, things of that nature. You want to note the quality of the journal. Look at who published it, what are the credentials of the author. Is it a doctor who published the study, or what's their background? In some cases, you can look to see how many citations it has, for one thing, and two, how many times it's been cited by other articles. So those are also good things that you can look for. Let's see. Okay. All right, and this is just you becoming an expert in the field, essentially. So after you've gained all this knowledge, it's awesome, because now you can start to market yourself as an expert in whatever the topic field is. So have a passion for it. Know that it's something that going forward you'll be able to possibly market yourself. Or, for instance, if you're a psychology student and you do something on schizophrenia, you might find yourself working in that field in the future. You might not, but there's a better chance than not that's where you'll end up. Okay, so we've got RefWorks here, which I'm not sure if you are familiar with, and I'm not for this presentation going to do a rambling dissertation on all the ins and outs of RefWorks, but RefWorks is a citation management software, and I have a RefWorks account that I'll just pop in and take a look at. If you want to learn more about RefWorks, we have the tutorials and guides here where you can look at a tutorial. You can YouTube it. There's probably something on YouTube that talks about RefWorks. You can also contact one of your librarians, and your local librarians or one of the online librarians, and they should be able to work or walk you through how to set up an account in RefWorks. But you can click on RefWorks, and then let's see if I can remember my login. So essentially what it is, it's a citation management software. And so you can build a reference, and I just have, a couple of different folders over here. Here's one business article folder. There's 8 articles in there. I can take my business article folder and create a bibliography that I can put into my paper, into my dissertation. Truth be told, when I did my dissertation, I did all of my own citations in the references section. I didn't use any type of software. Good for me, right? And in order to maintain all of the articles I had, I just copied them. I made copies of them and put it onto a flash drive. So that got to be quite big, but I at least always had an electronic copy of the article. In some cases, I printed them off, and I've got a box of articles that I have kept or whatever. So, but there are different ways that you can do this. If I were to do it all again, I don't know if you guys are familiar with a piece of software called Zotero, and I'm going to type it onto into the chat room. It's Zotero, and what you can do with Zotero is you can download Zotero to your desktop, and then when you go out to a database or you go out to the internet, you can open it up. And I think it only works with like Google Chrome and Firefox. It doesn't work with Internet Explorer, if I'm not mistaken. And so what you need to do is you'll go out, you'll turn it on, and then you click on a button in there, and it will take all that information from that page. It will search it, and it will create and store a citation for you. And I think they even have it now. It's like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago when I looked at this last. They even have it where you can do in-text citations from your Zotero account as well. It's pretty slick. I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert. It is something that I do want to become an expert in so that I could teach everybody else how to use it. But yeah, it's one of the more unique tools that are out there as far as citation management is concerned. All right. Another thing you can do is you can create within ProQuest and I'll show you how to do this real quick too. I don't know where you guys are at with your research, so I don't know how many of you know, all these ins and outs. But if you're in ProQuest Central or any of the ProQuest databases, you can go up to this thing called My Research. If you click on that, you can create a login for yourself. And let's see if I got this down, I hope. And if you're logged into the system, you can start saving searches or saving articles into this particular account that you've created. You can create subfolders, right? So I can go to my whatever other folder I might have. So social media folder, I could go there. I guess I don't have anything in my social media folder. Good for me. But it's just another way for you to save some of the documents that you come across in your searches. So that is just another cool thing. If you need help setting that up, you can do that as well by contacting one of your librarians or one of the librarians online. It is also linked. ProQuest bought RefWorks a number of years ago, so the two are linked. So I could click on somewhere over here. I think it's down here. I could log into my RefWorks account from ProQuest. So that's pretty cool. All right. Have you learned enough already tonight? Let's see. All right, let's get back to the show here. We're almost done. Let's see. So organizing your research, there are different ways to do that. You can go by the theoretical approaches. You can look at different concepts and issues, methodologies, so on and so forth. When I put my dissertation together, I think I gave a historical view of leadership. Then I talked about the different leadership styles, and then I got into I looked at decision making and creativity models and tried to see what connections they might have between one and the other, or what are the common themes. Some researchers might have a creativity model or a model of creative thinking that is seven stages or 7 steps long, and other might have only 4. So I kind of looked at all of those and put them together, and that's kind of how I lumped it into my literature review. So discuss the different types of leadership styles that are out there as well. All right, as far as writing your literature review, there are some websites out there. Purdue OWL does have a writing a literature review page that you can access. There are other places like the University of Wisconsin. There's a number of different possibilities that you'll have. I, again, would suggest going to the dissertations database and seeing which, doing a search, finding one that's similar to what you're searching for, and then kind of looking through that, not using exactly what they did, but using that as a model. In some cases, if you go into the library, our library, and you look at the different articles or dissertations that have been published in our system, in the Argosy University system, you'll see that there might be specific things that Argosy does that other universities might not do. So I might look through those just to see, is there a common way of doing it that Argosy, that's kind of the way that it's the Argosy way. That would be something to investigate. Okay, so now I'm going to open this up for questions. If anybody has a question, let's go ahead and type it into the question section or into the chat section. I will monitor both of those and answer them as they come up. Lastly, my plan is this. What I plan to do is I will email tomorrow the PowerPoint slide that we went through tonight. You have my contact information. What I've done in the past is I've uploaded the actual presentation to my YouTube account. I'll see if I can do that again. There's been some issues with uploading that, so I didn't do it the last time I did a webinar, but I'm going to try and do it for this one. And then you should be able to, I'll just send you the link to the YouTube video and you'll be able to look and see, how to, what, or whatever, reference back to the presentation this evening. So at this time, if you do have questions, please feel free to just type them into the questions section. Let's see. If not, oh wait. Let's see, well, I don't see any questions. And I wondered if everybody, I wondered if everyone had or was a doctoral student. Are you all? Okay, so there is a question. Let me get to it here. Oh no, I will. I'm doing both. As someone that Cheryl asked if I will email the presentation. I am going to email the presentation. I'm also going to try to upload it and make it a virtual presentation as well. Or what does that mean? Put it on my YouTube account or try to get it somewhere where everyone can access it. All right, Shannon says it was very informative, and again, that's the thing as well that I want everybody to take away from tonight. I gave you a lot of information, and I'm not expecting I'm not gonna, it's not really a relationship, but our interactions. I don't see why our interactions should have to end this evening. If you have questions, if you run into problems, that's what you're going to find out about librarians at the campuses is that we're here to help you as best we can. Now, there's some things we can't do. Of course, we can't write your papers for you. That'd be awesome, right? But if you need help finding research, we'll do our best to try to make sure that you get the information you need. How do you create, one of the questions is, how do you create a reference list? Well, that depends. It depends on if you're talking about, are you creating it from scratch? Or are you creating it from one of the like RefWorks? If you want to know how to do it from RefWorks, that's some training that you'll have to go through that we won't be able to cover with the next, like 5 minutes or so. Essentially, what a references list is you've got your in-text citations and then you have your reference citations. So you mention the study or the data that you're bringing into your paper in your in-text with an in-text citation, and your in-text citation is supposed to lead the reader to your references list. Your references list should be listed by first author listed's last name alphabetically. And then there are certain rules if you've got the same author and the same year and so on and so forth. But then it's if it's a different year, it's always chronologically. And that's kind of the overview of it. I'm not sure if there's anything more specific that you were interested in. Oh, is that an I or a J? It's J for Jess. So yeah, right? It's like underlined there. Good catch. So JLER, 2 A's, 1 S at argosy.edu. All right. Okay. Hey, and thank you for spelling my name right, everybody. You won't know how many times I see almost inappropriate versions of my last name, so I really do thank you for that. All right. Are there any last questions? I haven't really checked the chat section. Looks like everybody's using the questions section. But again, if you're interested in some really wicked citation help or whatever, I would go to YouTube. I'd type in Zotero, and I would watch a couple of the videos on it just to see if it was something that you thought was useful. That's Zotero, Zotero, and it's pretty amazing stuff. Okay. All right, so unless everyone, I think actually I'm going to sign off. I welcome anyone. I've got my, yeah, and I do text, right? So you can either call me, that's my home, or my, not my home phone number, that's my office phone number. And I also have an account where students can text me if they have questions, and need assistance rather quickly. We have the chat function. I am Central Time Zone, so if you're like in Hawaii, it might not work if you're doing it at 3 in the afternoon. I don't know what the time zones are there. So anyway, again, I thank everybody for coming out. Don't be a stranger to your librarians, and let us know if we can help you. I'm going to sign off, and I thank everybody for showing up. Thanks a lot.